All right, gentlemen, let's get real for a second. You've been with your partner for years, maybe decades. You know each other's routines, you've raised kids together, you've weathered a lot of life storms side by side. But in the bedroom, there's still one question that quietly nags at the back of your mind, the one you'd never actually say out loud. Did she really come? I know. It feels almost embarrassing to even think about asking. And honestly, you probably shouldn't ask. At least not the way most men do it. Because here's the thing, walking up to her right after and saying, "Did you come?" almost always kills the moment. For most women, it feels clunky, forced, or even a little bit insulting, like you're asking her to grade your performance on a report card. And if she's the type who tends to protect your feelings, she's going to say yes whether it's true or not. I'm Dr. Lily Harper, and I've been working in sexual health and women's physiology for over 15 years. In my practice, I've had thousands of conversations with couples, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that this is one of the most common and most quietly painful gaps in long-term relationships. The man genuinely wants to please his partner. The woman genuinely doesn't want to hurt his feelings. And so this polite little fiction keeps going, sometimes for years. Here's a number that might surprise you. Studies consistently show that more than 68% of women have faked an orgasm at least once. That's more than 2 out of 3. And research also tells us that the orgasm gap, the difference between how often men and women climax during partnered sex, actually widens as couples age. Not because desire disappears, but because communication patterns get more entrenched and bodies change in ways that aren't always talked about. Women don't fake it to be cruel. They do it because they feel safer protecting your ego than risking an awkward conversation in a vulnerable moment. That's not a character flaw. That's just how most of us were raised to handle intimacy. So if you can't just ask, how do you actually know? How do you read her body well enough to understand what's happening in real time? That's exactly what we're going to go through today. I'm going to give you the 5 most reliable physical signs that a woman is approaching or experiencing orgasm. And because I know a lot of you watching this are in your 50s, 60s, or beyond, I'm also going to specifically address how these signs may look a little different in older women, because that part almost never gets talked about, and it absolutely should be. Knowing the signs is only half the battle, though. The real goal is helping her get there more consistently. So let's get into it. The first sign is muscle tension and involuntary contractions. As a woman gets close to orgasm, her whole body begins to tighten up. Her pelvic floor muscles start contracting on their own. She's not doing that on purpose. It's the nervous system taking over. Her abs engage, her thighs press together or squeeze, her back may arch, and sometimes, this is one of the most reliable tells, her toes curl. These are not conscious movements. She's not performing. These are automatic reflexes, the same way your leg kicks when a doctor taps your knee. Think of it as her body bracing for a wave. Everything tightens right before the release. Now, here's where a lot of men, good men, well-meaning men, make a crucial mistake. The moment they sense something building, they switch things up. They change position, they try a different technique, they pick up the pace suddenly, thinking that variety is going to impress her or push her over the edge. I completely understand the instinct. But in that specific moment, variety is the enemy. Changing anything at that stage is like pulling the plug on a washing machine right before the spin cycle finishes. The rule is consistency. Whatever you were doing when she started to tense up, keep doing exactly that. Same rhythm, same pressure, same angle. If she suddenly relaxes and seems to be coming down from that peak, that's your signal to shift gears. But if she's tightening, if her breathing is getting faster, if her sounds are getting more intense, you're on the right track. Don't move. Stay locked in. Now, for women over 50, this sign may be more subtle. The muscle contractions are often less dramatic than they were at 30. This doesn't mean she's less aroused or less capable of orgasm. It simply means the visible tension may be quieter. Pay attention to smaller cues. A slight stiffening in her legs, a subtle change in how she's holding her breath, a gentle arch in her lower back. These smaller signals carry the same meaning. Don't overlook them just because they're not theatrical. The second sign is her breathing and heart rate. Sexual arousal isn't just a mental experience, it's a full-body physiological event. As she approaches orgasm, Her heart rate climbs and her breathing shifts. It gets shallower, faster. You might feel her chest rising and falling more rapidly against yours, or hear her breath coming out in short, uneven bursts. This is one of the clearest and most honest signals her body can give you, because breathing is almost impossible to fake convincingly for an extended period of time. Here's something practical you can try. Sync your breathing with hers for a few seconds. Just match her rhythm intentionally. Then very gently, slowly bring your own breath down. When you do that, her nervous system often follows. It creates a sense of safety and connection that helps her brain release control, which is actually the main thing standing between a lot of women and orgasm. Her brain needs to feel safe enough to let go. Whisper something simple and reassuring, something like, "I'm right here, I've got you." You don't need a script. The words matter less than the tone. Steady, warm, unhurried. There's also a technique I find really effective for building arousal in a controlled way. I call it the breath ladder. You build stimulation for about 20 seconds, active, engaged, consistent. Then you pause and hold steady pressure for about 10 seconds without pulling away. Then you build again. Cycle through that a few times. What happens is her nervous system stacks tension with each cycle rather than releasing it prematurely. After 2 or 3 rounds, the release becomes almost inevitable. For older women, one thing worth knowing is that cardiovascular changes that come with age can affect how dramatically the heart rate spikes during arousal. Her breathing pattern may not become as obviously rapid as it once did, but the shift will still be there. Watch for even a subtle change from her normal resting breathing. That change is meaningful. The third sign is loss of control, grabbing, trembling, or shaking. When orgasm arrives, many women lose voluntary control over their body in ways they absolutely cannot fake. They reach out and grab something. The sheets, a pillow, your shoulders, sometimes your hair. Their legs may shake or tremble. Their body might shiver or twitch afterwards, even minutes later. These aren't performed reactions. They're the body's response to a simultaneous flood of adrenaline, dopamine, and oxytocin, 3 of the most powerful neurochemicals your brain produces. When you see this happening, your job is simple. Don't change anything. Stay present, stay steady, let her body ride through it completely. If she grabs you or grips your arm, lean gently into that. Press your body softly against hers or place a firm, calm hand on her hip. That grounding pressure, that sense of being held in place, actually makes the orgasm more intense for a lot of women. It signals safety. It signals that you're present and not going anywhere. Many women in my practice have told me that feeling physically grounded during climax, feeling anchored, makes the experience significantly more powerful than when a partner pulls back or gives her space in that moment. For older women, the shaking and trembling may be less pronounced, but something I hear very commonly from women in their 50s and 60s is that the aftershock, the warmth, the full body relaxation that follows actually becomes more noticeable, not less. It lasts longer. So even if the dramatic physical response at the peak is subtler, the resolution phase that follows is often more pronounced. That's a sign worth paying attention to. The fourth sign is what's called the sex flush. As arousal builds, blood flow to the skin increases significantly. You may notice her chest, neck, or face turning pink or red, sometimes a blotchy, spreading warmth across her upper chest and throat. Doctors call this vasodilation. It's the same biological mechanism that makes you blush, except it's being triggered by sexual arousal rather than embarrassment. Not every woman gets a visible flush every time, but when it appears, it's a genuinely reliable indicator that she's close. In some women, you'll also notice a deepening or darkening of color in the genitals themselves right before climax as blood continues to pool in the tissue. Here's the most important thing I can tell you about this sign. When you notice it, do not point it out clinically. Don't say, "Oh, your chest is turning red." That's going to snap her right out of the moment. Instead, just look at her. Really look at her. And say something simple and genuine like, "You look so beautiful right now." Then go quiet. Silence in that moment is actually a tool. I know that feels counterintuitive. We're often taught that being attentive means being verbally active. But in this specific moment, Quiet removes distraction and allows her full sensory attention to stay on the physical sensation she's experiencing. Words pull attention upward to the thinking brain. Silence lets her stay in her body. For women over 50, the sex flush may be less visible or more localized. Some women notice it shows up more in the neck and face and less across the chest as they age. Hormonal changes, particularly the decline in estrogen, affect blood vessel responsiveness. But the flush is still there in most women. You may just need to look a little closer. The fifth sign is her verbal cues. Women rarely announce an orgasm in plain language. What they do instead is drop very specific, very direct verbal guidance, usually without even realizing that's what they're doing. Phrases like "don't stop," "right there, just like that," "keep going," these are not random sounds or performance. They are real-time feedback. Her body is literally guiding you in that moment. The mistake I see men make most often here is treating these cues as encouragement to escalate or change something. She says, "don't stop," and he goes faster. He shifts the angle, he adds something new, thinking he's going to take her somewhere better. But what she actually said was "don't stop," meaning don't change a single thing. When you hear those cues, mirror them softly. If she says "don't stop," respond quietly with "I won't stop." That simple echo does something really powerful. It confirms to her subconscious that you heard her, that you understand, and that you're going to stay exactly where you are. Her nervous system relaxes just enough to stop monitoring and start surrendering. That's when the release happens. For older women, verbal cues may become quieter over time, partly due to habit, partly because long-term couples often become less verbally expressive during sex without realizing it. If you're not getting much verbal feedback, you can gently encourage it. Not in the moment with a direct question, but outside of the bedroom. More on that in a minute. Now, those are the 5 signs, but I want to go a little deeper here, because knowing what to look for is only useful if you've created the right conditions for those signs to appear in the first place. And this is the part that matters enormously for older couples specifically. Let's talk about what happens before, during, and after. Before any physical touch is where most men underestimate their own power. A lot of men, especially men who've been in long relationships, fall into the habit of assuming their partner is ready to go when they are. But most women, and this becomes even more true as women age, experience what researchers call responsive desire. They don't start out turned on and then look for an opportunity. Their arousal comes as a response to the right conditions being present. You have to build those conditions first. That starts well before you're in the bedroom. A text earlier in the day, a genuine compliment at dinner that has nothing to do with sex, physical affection, a hand on her back, a real hug that lasts more than 2 seconds, that isn't leading anywhere. These small investments tell her nervous system that she's safe, desired, and valued. That foundation matters enormously by the time you're intimate. When you are in the bedroom, slow everything down. Dim the lights. Make sure the room is warm. This sounds small, but it genuinely matters because a woman who's even slightly cold will have a harder time fully relaxing into her body. Eliminate distractions. Phones away, door closed. Try breathing together face to face for a few slow breaths before anything else. 10 slow, synchronized breaths. It sounds almost absurdly simple, but it creates a neurological sync between the two of you that lowers cortisol and signals safety. It's one of the most underused tools in intimacy. Tease without rushing. Let your hands hover near her thighs or hips without touching. The anticipation of almost being touched is, neurologically speaking, incredibly powerful, sometimes more arousing than touch itself. And when you do start touching, ask binary questions that make it easy for her to guide you. Not "what do you want?" That puts her on the spot, but softer or firmer, or slower or a little more. Those small, easy choices keep her engaged and give you real-time guidance without interrupting the flow. During stimulation, rhythm is king. I can't say this enough. Women's bodies respond to consistency with small, intentional adjustments, not to constant variety. Pressure, angle, and rhythm are your primary tools. If you're focused on manual stimulation, try rotating attention slowly between the clitoris, the inner labia, and the vaginal entrance rather than staying on one spot continuously. This keeps arousal building without overstimulating any single area. A few specific techniques worth knowing. The 8-count glide, 8 light, smooth strokes followed by 4 firm presses, then a brief pause, then repeat. This creates a rhythm her nervous system can track and anticipate. The figure C, instead of stimulating the clitoris directly, which can be too intense, especially for older women whose tissue may be more sensitive due to hormonal changes, trace a slow C shape around the clitoral hood. The indirect stimulation is often more sustainable and more effective. The anchor shift. Keep one hand completely still on her body while the other moves. The stillness of one hand creates a grounding anchor, while the other provides stimulation. This balance of security and sensation is something a lot of women respond to very strongly. After orgasm matters more than most men realize. This part gets almost no attention in conversations about sex, and it's a genuine miss. For women, especially as they get older, orgasm isn't a finish line, it's a deeply vulnerable state. If you pull away immediately, roll over, grab your phone, or get up, even if you don't intend anything by it, it can feel cold, dismissive, like the connection was only instrumental. Instead, stay close. Keep a hand on her body. Whisper something real and warm like, "That was incredible," or just, "I love you." Let her feel held. This isn't just kindness. It's actually neurologically strategic. When her brain consistently associates orgasm with connection and safety, it becomes more willing to go there again. The next time, the path is a little shorter. The barriers are a little lower. Aftercare is literally an investment in your future intimacy together. Now, I want to address something that comes up constantly in my practice among couples in their 50s, 60s, and beyond. The physical changes that happen in women's bodies with age and how they affect sexual response. After menopause, declining estrogen levels affect vaginal tissue. The walls become thinner and less elastic, natural lubrication decreases, and nerve sensitivity can shift. This means that techniques that worked beautifully for decades may need to be adjusted. More foreplay time is almost always needed, not because desire has changed, but because the body's physical response takes longer to develop. Lubricant is not a sign of failure. It's a completely normal and often necessary tool. If she hasn't mentioned it, you might gently bring it up outside the bedroom as a positive addition, not a fix for a problem. Orgasms in older women may also feel different to her, not necessarily less pleasurable, but sometimes shorter or with less intense muscular contractions. Some women actually report deeper, more whole-body orgasms as they age, even if they're physically quieter. Don't measure what you're seeing against what you remember from 20 years ago. Pay attention to what's happening now. Lifestyle factors matter a lot here too, and I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't mention them. Blood flow is the foundation of sexual response for both of you. Foods that support nitric oxide production, dark chocolate, beets, pomegranate, leafy greens like arugula, genuinely support circulation in ways that matter for sexual function. Omega-3 fatty acids, zinc, and magnesium support hormone balance and nerve sensitivity. None of this is magic, but it's real. Sleep is critical. 7 to 8 hours a night supports healthy testosterone in men and healthy oxytocin levels in women, both directly tied to sexual desire and the ability to experience pleasure. If either of you is chronically sleep deprived, that will show up in your sex life whether you connect the dots or not. And here's the one that people consistently underestimate: communication outside the bedroom. Research shows that couples who talk openly about sex, not in the moment, but in comfortable low-pressure conversations, have significantly higher rates of mutual orgasm than those who don't. Talking about it lowers shame, builds anticipation, and sets realistic expectations. It also gives both of you permission to bring up things that have shifted without it feeling like a complaint. You can say, "I'd love to know what feels best to you these days," over dinner, and mean it genuinely. That conversation will do more for your intimacy than any technique. So let me pull this all together for you. The 5 signs that she's approaching or experiencing orgasm are muscle tension and involuntary contractions throughout her body, a noticeable shift in her breathing and heart rate, loss of physical control like grabbing or trembling, the sex flush, that spreading warmth and redness across her chest and neck, And her verbal cues, those specific phrases that are really direct guidance in real time. When you learn to read those 5 signals, you'll never need to ask. And when you pair that awareness with everything we talked about, the slow build before touch, the consistent rhythm during stimulation, the real attentiveness in the moments after, you create a completely different kind of experience for her. Women don't fake orgasms because they want to. They do it because they're not being read accurately, because the stimulation isn't consistent enough, because they don't feel safe enough in that moment to fully let go. If you change those 3 things, your ability to read her body, your consistency, and the safety she feels with you, you change her entire experience. And for those of you in long-term relationships, in your 50s or 60s or older, I want to say this directly. This chapter of your life together can be more intimate, more connected, and more satisfying than any that came before. Not despite the years, but because of them. You know each other. You have time. You're past the performance anxiety of your 30s. The foundation is already there. Use it. I'm Dr. Lily Harper. If this gave you something useful today, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Share this with someone who could use the reminder that it's never too late to get better at this. And drop a comment below. I'd love to know which of these 5 signs resonated most with you, or what topic you'd like me to cover next. I read every single one.